First, I would like to say how happy I am to see such a beautiful Theravadan forest monastery in Australia. And having had ordinations here, one or more, I'm not sure, it means that the Dhamma has landed in Australia. And I'm really, truly happy about that. The place is magnificent. I'm highly impressed. And all the monks that have had their hand in this and have worked on it really need to be congratulated. And the other thing is I want to thank Ajahn Brahms for giving me this opportunity to share with you the way I've been teaching for the past 10 years. Maybe it will interest you to also hear that I myself have been doing the jhanas for much longer, but I didn't dare open my mouth and teach them because there was and still is so much controversy about it. And in 1983, I met the Venerable Jnana of Mitrigala. And, I went looking for him. And I was told that he would be able to confirm or otherwise whether this was correct, what I was doing. Because obviously I didn't have a teacher to teach me. There wasn't anybody around that was teaching the jhanas. So I met him, and he confirmed and said to me, "You must teach that in the West because it's a lost art." And I said, "Yes, I will, sir." And gently and slowly I started teaching it. I started in Sri Lanka and got a lot of flack. Because if I'm teaching it, that means I must be doing it. Well, how else? So that went on for a while, and it subsided. And then when I started teaching it in the West, of course, there were people there also who had been told that they shouldn't do it. But meanwhile, that has also subsided to some extent. There's still always some questions arising, and I will outline those. The first thing to say about jhanas, in my personal opinion, and I'm going to say personal opinion when it is the other things which I say, when I don't mention that, it's not my personal opinion, it's that which is experienced. But the personal opinion is that monks and nuns have to do the jhanas. Their monk or nun life will not be satisfactory without them, for the simple reason that we have to forego many of our essential desires. When there's no sex, no music, no movies, can't go shopping, can't eat when you want to. All what ordinary people, worldlings, Putthajanas, do. And we are not so other than ordinary. But when our meditation comes to the point where we are able to have this wonderful substitute, well, that's not even well enough said. When we have the ability to gain happiness and peace within without sensual contact, then we have not only a substitute, but something far greater than we could get through our sense contacts. And I again believe, personal view, that when Westerners disrobe it's because the meditation didn't come together. And we do have that happen not so infrequently on both sides, the male and the female side. It's not a great tragedy in our society, but if the meditation had come together, it couldn't have happened. Because now, for instance, in this place, everything is geared towards meditating. There's absolute quiet. There are kutis. There's a beautiful sala. And the whole thing is set up so that one can actually do it and benefit from it. So that's the first point. We should do it. The second point is, in the Majjhima Nikaya, number 68, the Buddha says about the jhanas, this is a pleasure I will allow myself. That alone should be enough to dispense with all controversy. But apparently it isn't. If one reads the Majjhima Nikaya and reads those suttas which are concerned with the path and with the meditation, it's never without the jhanas. We all know that he learned them first and then realized that there has to be something beyond that, which means the jhanas are the means. They are not the end, but they are the means. And in the Anguttara Nikaya, the Buddha actually says that path and fruit can arise after any of them, even after the first one. We also know that when he sat under the famous Bodhi tree in what's today Bodh Gaya, he went to the 8th jhana, back down to the first, at the time that enlightenment occurred, and then formulated the Four Noble Truths, his enlightenment statement. We know that on his deathbed, he went through the jhanas, and the Venerable Anuruddha stated that he died between 4th and 5th. I usually say what's good enough for the Buddha should be good enough for us. And it's essential that we have that kind of certainty that the Buddha is our teacher and that we can emulate him. Obviously, the jhanas are not enlightenment. The jhanas are mundane. They are not super mundane. But not only do they give us the way of living without having to look for sense contacts, we're going to have sense contacts anyway, but they also give us an enormously expanded horizon and a much deeper perspective. And being the means for the mind, they are that which will get us there. They are the means because we need an undisturbed and unworried and calm mind in order to see truth. The words Kanika Samadhi and Upachara Samadhi, momentary concentration and excess concentration, were not used by the Buddha. They are commentarial. There's nothing wrong with the commentaries, but momentary concentration is what everybody has when they even dial a phone. Momentary concentration is what everybody has when they drive a car. Otherwise they'd kill themselves. Excess concentration is a little better than that. Excess concentration at least brings the mind to a state where where there is some restfulness. It feels, at access concentration, upachara samadhi, feels as if one is on the breath, and at the same time there are nebulous thoughts in the background, which are going by the back of the head like clouds, which of course are not, but that is what it feels like very often. If we get to that, there's more determination needed. The Buddha talked about Sama Samadhi, the 8-step on the Noble Eightfold Path. Right concentration. And there's no question that that's what he meant. He meant the jhanas. And if we do take a look at the explanations that we find mainly in the Majjhima Nikaya, but also in the Visuddhimagga, we can see quite clearly what is meant by the jhanas. Now, in the Visuddhimagga, there's a very curious thing. Many curious things, but one is particularly curious. 1/3 of the whole Visuddhimagga deals with the jhanas. And then there is mentioned in it the 10 corruptions of insight. And they have been misconstrued to mean that one shouldn't do the jhanas. The 10 corruptions of insight contain 4 of the factors which constitute the 7 factors of enlightenment. Now, when we have a look at those 10 corruptions of insight, we need to have a very good look at the fact that they contain piti, which is translated as rapture. Delight would be just as well. It contains the pasadi, which is tranquility, and it contains upekkha, equanimity, and it contains energy, which are 4 of the 7 factors of enlightenment. So what has happened with those, which is another argument which is constantly being bandied about, the 10 corruptions of insight, what has happened with those is they've been misunderstood. One has, so to say, tossed out the baby with the bathwater. One doesn't do the jhanas because one could get attached to them. That's another one of the 10 attachment. Well, if anybody ever comes up with that argument, it's certainly being better than being attached to sensual desires. If one has to have attachments, and we're going to have attachments until we're enlightened. Nibbana is non-clinging. So that's one thing about them. But the other thing about these 10 corruptions of insight is the fact that they are part and parcel of the path. The only thing that one is warned about is that one shouldn't think one is at the end of the path. I've been teaching the jhanas for 10 years, 11 now. I've been teaching for 19 years. I have yet to meet a Westerner who has become convinced that because of doing the jhanas, he or she is enlightened. I haven't met anyone. Or he or she is cleverer than the teacher. Nothing at all. What the jhanas actually constitute are the natural way the mind goes. Meditation is science of mind. And science has to be repeatable and has to be open to everyone. And it also has to be explainable. Otherwise it's not science. The Buddha explained it. He showed how to repeat it. He taught it so that everybody could do it. Amongst my students, many can do it. I can't give any numbers. I don't count them, so I don't know. But many can, particularly the first 3. Every human mind is geared to go in that direction,